We are 1 week away from the Stranger going live in Galaxy of Heroes. He is a meta-defining character, and it is very important that we have all the ability materials, the gear, the team layout that think that we're going to need all set in stone and prepared for before we get this character. It's going to be something that's very interesting, and we're going to navigate through it in this video. So let's go ahead and get into it. But before we do, if this Let's Prepare series is helping you guys out, make sure you guys leave a thumbs up, as it greatly helps me out in my channel and gives me that feedback. As if you find it helpful as well, make sure you guys are sharing and commenting so that way it reaches out further and that we get better feedback from that as well. Thank you guys again for your guys' support. Let's go ahead and prepare for the Stranger. Now we're going to go through the agenda. Again, we're going to go through ability materials, we're going to go through gear, we're going to go through mods, and we're going to go through teams. Every single time that I read through this kit, I'm finding out something new. That's why I think he's going to be such a meta-breaking character, because it's going to be honestly very hard to keep track of what's actually happening. So this is my first swag at it. Let's see how much changes in the future, but I feel pretty confident in this. So for our ability mats, to max out, we're going to need 60 omegas. I know I'm going to put omegas in here because there are quite a bit of the mid-game players that are still kind of running low on omegas. I will say this, on .gg, I've never seen it before. I'm not saying that it hasn't happened, but the Omicron had 16 omegas on it as well. So there could be a chance that that is just a wrong error, you know, sort of a clerical error. But so that might be actually 16 subtracted from the 60 that is required. So that might be closer to 46. But in any case, I went with 60. We're also going to have 60 Zetas, and we're going to have 60 Omicrons. So it's very standard for our Conquest characters that they have 3 Zetas and 3 Omicrons. Now here's the question that everyone always asks. Are the Zetas required? And I'm going to say on this one, yes, all of them are required. It is pretty clear cut to me what the order is, which is the unique, then the lead, and then the special. That's the order that I would add them in if you are short Zetas, but I would add them all because they are really important. Just a really quick snippet on each one of them and why I'm placing them there in this order. The unique, I think, is a very sneaky one that I think people won't really agree with, or they would easily miss this. But the unique, basically, when he does a special, he then calls himself to assist. My interpretation on the way that this ability reads is that this is all going to happen during his turn as well. So by him doing that, he is then gaining the 50 speed as well. Speed is very important. We're going to table that for a little bit before we go into mod, and we'll discover a little bit more of that when we go into mods. But that basic that he's going to be doing whenever we're actually doing specials is really important. So that's why unique is number 1. On the lead, it's also very important because it is actually going to be decreasing, or it is, I should say, it's a way for us to decrease our specials cooldowns. So by virtue of specials now also being very important because it does a basic for us, we also want to reduce those cooldowns so we can do more specials and spam specials so we get more basics. And then on the third one, it just is a nice way for you to stun an additional enemy. And the one that it stuns is the weakest enemy. And typically, when you see squads on who's doing the most damage, it is usually the weakest enemy, or they are a very important support character that, you know, can help boost up the damage of a team. So just stunning them, being able to, you know, potentially stop some turn meter swaps or anything like that is also a very important thing. So that's why I think all of these are required, and that's why I ordered them that way. Now, the way I've described, the way that I've kind of framed this in my head is that Zetas really cover his Achilles heels, and Omicrons are what is going to allow him to punch up. The Zetas, again, if you don't want something cheap to kind of come, if you're going to place him on defense and you don't want something cheap to kind of, you know, take advantage of something that potentially isn't covered, you're going to want all the Zetas. Omicrons are what's going to end up elevating that team into a little bit higher of a stratosphere, right? So I'm I will say this too. The Omicrons are a much finer comb in between them. I think the difference between 1 and 3 is really nothing. I think you could make an argument that all three of these are must. I am just trying to give you a little bit of room for interpretation on it. So I think the lead is a must. I think you have to have that. I also believe that the unique is a must. I put strong / must in here, but I just think that based off of the text there and being able to do some percent health damage in there, I think that that's going to be a really important part. Again, we'll table that a little bit for modding. And the special, the reason why I have it in the nice to have is that feels like more of a something that like the player has to control. It basically, whenever you're able to do it and you end up, defeating an enemy during that turn, you can add a revive into your team. You can add a full heal, all these other things. So I think that is under the right circumstances and usually probably underneath the player usage. That makes total sense. And I think it's a must. But if we're just to place it on defense, there's probably a decent shot that the AI doesn't play it right. And then that Omicron really never gets to see the day where it actually is effective. Until, of course, it absolutely depends on your fight. So it will happen at the worst moment for us if it's placed on defense. So that's the kind of discussion on ability mats. So let's go through gear. I've listed out everything here on this side that is you need more than 100 of. The big key things to note is, yes, you will need 300 Carbantes. That is a pretty price to pay. Luckily, we have 1 to 2 raids before Stranger goes live, so that should be pretty easy to make up. So then the big thing for us is to have 250 of the shock prods in the Chirotech, and then 150 of those computer prototypes in the Chirotech as well. So just so you guys know, the gear is pretty on par with what we see, 400 Kairos, and then a bunch of the core gear that we have always needed. Okay, let's talk about mods. This is a section that I'm going to place a little bit of emphasis on. And I think this is probably also the spot that might change the most. So at gear 13, he's got 34,000 health and 57,000 protection. I will say that as we add on relics, which we're going to want to do because his kit also wants relics as well. But as we add on relics, that health to protection ratio becomes basically a 1-for-1. This is important because, again, we've, per our earlier discussions, we want to add the Omicron so that way we're getting these max health and we're doing damage based off of the stranger's max health, which is then boosted also by, all the different uniques that are going on in there and all that good stuff. So I say that because when we go into modding, you'll see why we're kind of calling for health in the future. So with speed, he is a base 174. However, you'll see in my little parentheses that I have a 209. I'm maybe cheating a little bit here, but he is always going to go with Starkiller. Starkiller is automatically going to add 35 speed so long as you meet the criteria, which should, if you not, that's user error. But he will get that 35 speed from Starkiller. Additionally, you will get a 35 speed boost also if you meet that criteria and you're in GAC with Starkiller's Omicron. However, I kind of muddied that up a little bit because a lot of teams have, a plus 30 speed leadership or whatever the case is. So I didn't want to over add stuff. That being said, the first time that he does his special and he calls himself to assist because, again, we've added that Zeta, he's going to add himself another 50 speed plus however many relic levels he is. So you're going to see how his speed really stacks up quickly. But just with the Starkiller unique, that puts him at 209, which is actually 1 speed faster than the fastest non-GL, which is Stap. So he is deceptively fast, right? Because of what his character kit is going to be and his team composition is. I'm thinking, this could be wrong, but I'm thinking that Robo Maul will also add some speed to characters as well. We'll have to wait to see on that. The rest of his stats are pretty binary. I mean, they're pretty much what we expect. He does have a decent amount of potency. He does have a decent amount of tenacity. He does have a good amount of health still, so he is going to, make people pay if they attack him. He's going to make them pay. But his physical damage is actually really not that much. It's very unimpressive, which is why we're not going to go with something like offense. I just don't see him hitting very hard. But again, the numbers could prove me wrong here. So overall, we are going to go for 4 speed and then 2 health. We want to go for the speed because I think there's a chance where we're going to be insta-killing a lot. So long as we can kind of keep the turns moving, we're going to be insta-killing. That's where his damage is. We don't need to worry about his crit damage. We don't need to worry about offense or anything like that. His damage is going to come from him insta-killing. And I think you'll have characters like Starkiller and perhaps Robolegs Maul to end up trying to be the damage dealers elsewhere in that team. So that's why we're going to load him up with health. One, because there's % health damage, but we also just want him to survive. If he survives long enough, he will insta-kill people. Like that is going to be his thing and his calling card towards his team. So that's why we're going with primaries being mostly health, whenever it comes to the circle, to the triangle, and to the cross. And we're going to want fast speed on him. Again, we want to add as much speed on him just so that way he does have a lot of bonus turns, but we want to make sure that he's going as often as possible and that we give him that 250 speed breathing room wherever he can to potentially take out some of those tanks that are slower. Okay, so let's talk through teams now. All right, so pre-Maul, because we are going to get Stranger before Maul ever comes out, I should also make a note. We haven't actually been given the Acolyte class yet. So potentially there's some add-ons in here that we're not seeing. I don't know if Kylo Ren is actually going to be an Acolyte. I'm just guessing based off of kind of what the theme looks like it's going to be. But let's just act like Marok in this scenario is Maul. I should probably move my face so that way you guys could see the rest of the team. But sorry, not Maul, but that he's the Stranger. You're going to have Starkiller. That's a given. Those two are basically married with each other. Based off of the Q&A session or whatever, it wasn't even a Q&A session, but just the little snippet before the kit reveal, Visas, Mar, and Barriss are also going to be there. I can see Barriss being a really important part of this, especially with us health loading. It's going to help him try and not get into those thresholds where it looks a little bit dangerous for him. Barriss is going to kind of keep him healthy, right? The one thing, though, that I'm not sure about is Visas. She seems kind of like a throw-in here. I'm not sure if she's really going to be adding too much. But again, we'll wait and see how it all pans out. And Kylo Ren is not adding anything. He's just more or less a free agent that is what I think is going to be an Acolyte, but we'll have to wait and see again on what that goes with. Now, once we unlock Maul, we're going to toss out Kylo Ren or whoever we go in there and just act like my Maul is Robolegs Maul. We haven't got the kit reveal for him yet, but I anticipate, just based off of what we've seen in Conquest, this team is going to be very, very good. So do not sleep on this team. I would start to add relics. If you're going to add relics, I feel really safe with Starkiller. I feel really safe with Barriss. Visas, I'm a little bit on the edge with, but it's up to you guys. And then I would get the Stranger up to Relic 7, Relic 8 potentially. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Let me know how you guys think this team is going to punch up. It looks like a very strong team. I would invest in it. I think there's going to be a lot of potential, whether you want it on defense or offense. I think there's going to be just a lot of things that we can kind of play with and help us, kind of gain an early advantage on people that maybe don't have as good of preparation for the Stranger coming out. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.